You're listening to a production of the National Media Archive. To learn more or volunteer, go to nationalmediaarchive.com. There is a leader on the global stage whose name is tied to allegations of murder in foreign cities, vast secret wealth, and power wielded like that of a czar from centuries past. This leader is Vladimir Putin. The claim that the Russian state was deeply involved in the assassination of Alexander Litvinenko on British soil sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles. At the center of these allegations stands the president himself, a man repeatedly linked not just to assassinations, but also to the extraction of wealth on a scale that dwarfs many of the billionaires in the Western world. Vladimir Putin's riches have become the subject of intense investigation and speculation. Observers describe fleets of private aircraft, luxurious properties, and opulent yachts, assets that ordinary billionaires might hesitate to flaunt, but which are said to be hidden under layers of secrecy. Officially, Putin is supposed to draw a modest state salary, a sum that might be typical for a senior civil servant in any country, but many argue that this figure hides the true scale of his fortune. Estimates put his net worth as high as $40 billion, a figure that the Central Intelligence Agency and the Federal Bureau of Investigation have not confirmed publicly but have not denied investigating. Vladimir Putin's influence does not end with wealth alone. From Ukraine to Syria, his hand shapes conflicts and alliances, often leaving the world to debate where his reach begins and ends. Even as accusations of corruption swirl around him, he commands record approval ratings within Russia, a paradox that leaves outsiders baffled. To understand how such power and wealth could be amassed, it is necessary to look at Putin's path from humble beginnings to the Kremlin's apex. In St. Petersburg, where Putin grew up in a cramped communal apartment, poverty shaped the early years. Hot water was a luxury, the kitchen shared by families eking out their lives in tight quarters. But this city also offered young Vladimir Putin his first taste of political power. As a deputy mayor in the 1990s, fresh from his years with the Committee for State Security, he oversaw municipal contracts and export deals. During this time, millions of dollars vanished through entities like the 20th Trust, a company said to have built him a villa on the Spanish coast. Investigations were closed after Putin rose to Russia's highest office, and those who spoke out often found themselves marginalized or forced into retirement. While in St. Petersburg, Putin forged a tight circle of allies, men who would follow him to Moscow and rise alongside him as Russia's new elite. Many of these confidants run powerful state-owned companies today. The lawyer from his town hall days became the nation's president and later prime minister. His former deputy assumed the role of prime minister as well. Other trusted aides now steer Russia's oil, gas, and rail sectors. This loyalty has proven invaluable for consolidating control over the country's vast energy resources. The circle's access to the country's immense oil and gas reserves has brought billions into their orbit. In some accounts, oligarchs were compelled to contribute to grand projects under the guise of national development, but with benefits flowing back to the president himself. Roman Abramovich, one of Russia's best-known billionaires and the owner of the Chelsea Football Club, was among those who donated heavily, over $200 million that he believed would support healthcare. Reports claim that much of that money funded a lavish palace on the Black Sea coast, a sprawling complex described by critics as Putin's private domain. Offshore companies and discreet intermediaries helped shuttle funds, hiding ownership and shielding the assets from public scrutiny. But the palace is just one part of the puzzle. There are allegations of luxury yachts, like the $35 million vessel reportedly gifted by Abramovich. This yacht was managed through offshore structures, according to testimony from insiders who handled its transfer. Maintenance and operations costs allegedly drew funds from Russia's state budget, raising questions about whether the asset belonged to the nation or to Putin personally. Pushback against the president's alleged corruption carries risks. Billionaires such as Mikhail Khodorkovsky, who dared to challenge Putin openly about corruption, found themselves stripped of businesses and sentenced to long prison terms. Other entrepreneurs fled Russia altogether, seeking refuge in the United Kingdom, Estonia, and France. Many continue to claim that fortunes they built were siphoned away or used to bolster Putin's vast hidden empire. Energy has always been the core of Russia's modern wealth, and it is here that Putin's influence is felt most strongly. Oil and gas exports generate immense profits for the state and for the powerful circle managing these sectors. Companies like Gunvor, once partially owned by Gennady Timchenko, a close associate of Putin, handled significant volumes of Russian oil. United States officials have claimed that Putin hid investments through such firms, ensuring that vast sums remained shielded from public disclosure. Timchenko's fortune, estimated at $10 billion, has placed him on sanctions lists in the United States and Europe. He denies any wrongdoing or secret wealth holdings on behalf of Putin, but defectors and insiders maintain that Timchenko's success was inseparable from Putin's power. These complex webs of companies, trusted friends, offshore structures, and high-ranking officials paint a portrait of a man who learned early how to wield power and how to convert it into extraordinary wealth. To grasp the scale, consider the accounts of former associates who describe Putin's reach over every major asset inside Russia's borders, an empire where loyalty is rewarded and dissent is punished. The roots of Vladimir Putin's strategy to transform loyalty into wealth can be traced back to the days when he was a mid-level bureaucrat in St. Petersburg. In those early years, he mastered the art of surrounding himself with people he could trust completely, men who understood that their prosperity depended on their unwavering loyalty. This group, forged in the cramped offices of the St. Petersburg mayor's administration, became the backbone of his rule when he ascended to the Kremlin. One of the defining features of this inner circle is the blurred line between state assets and personal enrichment. In Russia's modern economic structure, the largest pools of money flow through energy, construction, and raw materials. Control of these sectors means control of the nation's wealth. As Putin's allies rose to lead oil giants like Rosneft and gas companies like Gazprom, they became the custodians of Russia's lifeblood. Those who fell out of favor saw their assets seized or were forced into exile. Roman Abramovich's role illustrates this power dynamic. Well known in Britain for owning the Chelsea Football Club, Abramovich is described by insiders as one of the donors who funded large projects with little choice in the matter. His contribution of more than $200 million was allegedly diverted into the construction of a palace for Putin on the Black Sea. Officially, this sprawling estate has no connection to Putin, yet documents and witness accounts suggest otherwise. Offshore companies and confidential intermediaries moved money and obscured the true owner behind layers of legal fog. In parallel, there are tales of gifts that reflect the informal tribute system. A $35 million yacht allegedly given to Putin by Abramovich illustrates how these offerings maintain favor and shield donors from ruin. Those who facilitated such transfers now live abroad, their accounts of secret deals providing glimpses into how this informal empire functions. The reach of these arrangements extends well beyond Russia's borders. In Spain, a villa said to belong to Putin emerged as investigators tracked wire transfers and phone calls among individuals tied to organized crime. Despite credible suspicions and evidence of hidden properties, cases often close quietly, especially when they touch the highest office in Russia. Inside the country, speaking out against this system can be perilous. Mikhail Khodorkovsky's fate sent a message that still echoes today. Once Russia's richest man, he was arrested and imprisoned after publicly challenging Putin about corruption during a live broadcast. His oil company, Yukos, was dismantled and absorbed by state-controlled entities. The message to other oligarchs was unmistakable. Loyalty keeps fortunes safe. Defiance brings ruin. Sergei Pugachev's story follows a similar pattern. Once a trusted Kremlin insider, he now lives in exile, battling the Russian state in international courts over billions he claims were taken from him unlawfully. Moscow accuses him of looting his own bank, charges he denies. But behind the legal clash lies a simple reality. Ownership in Putin's Russia is conditional. Assets are held at the pleasure of the leader and can be reclaimed at any sign of betrayal. Energy trade remains central to these allegations. Gunvor, a company tied to the lucrative oil export market, is one of the clearest examples. American officials have stated they believe Putin secretly held investments there, allowing him to benefit directly from Russia's oil wealth. Nearly half of Gunvor was owned by Gennady Timchenko, a man so close to Putin that sanctions placed him at the center of diplomatic tensions. Timchenko denies that any of his holdings were controlled by Putin, calling allegations a product of political hostility. Yet defectors and insiders have long described him as a trusted proxy for managing hidden wealth. Timchenko is not the only name mentioned. Others within Putin's tight circle have amassed vast fortunes. Childhood friends, former bodyguards, and neighbors whose net worth skyrocketed after the president's rise. Reports link these individuals to major government contracts and lucrative stakes in banks and construction firms. Even the arts are not untouched. A cellist godfather to Putin's daughter is said to have benefited handsomely, holding significant stakes in one of Russia's major banks. Meanwhile, the mechanism that binds it all remains the same: the understanding that Russia's vast resources are Putin's to distribute. Whether it is oil, gas, infrastructure, or state contracts, the system works like a modern-day feudal estate. Those who manage these riches know that their security lies in remaining loyal and discreet. They also know that defying the arrangement carries severe consequences: criminal charges, asset seizures, or forced exile. The scale of what has been described often defies belief. Sources close to Putin describe a mindset that treats the entire Russian Federation as a personal treasury. This perspective is why estimates of his net worth vary wildly, from tens of billions to uncountable sums that vanish behind shell companies and secret accounts. Some insiders say it is pointless to assign a figure because, in Putin's view, anything within Russia's borders can be called his own with a mere gesture. To piece together how this hidden empire functions, it is essential to look at the tools and methods used to keep vast fortunes out of sight. Offshore companies and opaque ownership structures play a central role. Documents from secret firms show how millions of dollars flowed into luxury properties like the palace on the Black Sea coast. These companies, sometimes no more than names on a registry, help mask true ownership, allowing assets to appear unconnected to Putin or his closest allies. One of the most telling examples involves the partnership between Sergei Kolesnikov and Nikolai Shamalov, both insiders trusted to manage streams of money that, according to their accounts, ended up financing personal projects for the Russian president. Kolesnikov's story reveals how funds meant for public good, such as healthcare donations from wealthy businessmen, were allegedly redirected toward private luxury. Shamalov, who retained a small share for himself, was recorded describing how 94% of a company's shares were handed over to Putin under a pseudonym, highlighting just how carefully these transactions were shielded. The recordings that surfaced show insiders casually discussing hundreds of millions of dollars as if they were everyday expenses. When these details emerged, they offered a rare window into how a network of loyal managers handled secret accounts, villas, and investments. These individuals were rewarded with high-ranking roles and massive personal fortunes, but they remained bound by a clear understanding. Everything they possessed ultimately depended on their loyalty to Putin. Over time, this loyalty has evolved into a kind of modern feudal contract. The cellist godfather to Putin's daughter, for example, holds a valuable stake in a Russian bank. A childhood friend turned construction magnate has secured government contracts worth billions. Neighbors have gone on to oversee national railways or control oil pipelines. Each of these men rose from humble beginnings alongside Putin, their sudden wealth inseparable from their proximity to power. But this system is not only about rewarding friends, it is also about enforcing fear. Those who attempt to expose or break away from the arrangement find themselves pursued by criminal charges, extradition requests, and threats. In interviews, exiled businessmen describe living under constant guard, never revealing their locations and fearing for their family's safety. Many now live in places like the United Kingdom, Estonia, or France, offering their testimonies in safe houses and anonymous hotel rooms. Some, like Max Friedzen, speak about how shares in their businesses were demanded in exchange for permission to operate. His oil supply monopoly at St. Petersburg's airport, he claims, came with a demand for a 15% cut, an early lesson in the cost of doing business under Putin's watch. These first-hand accounts echo the same message. Profit in Russia is conditional. Ownership does not mean control. Instead, The Kremlin's inner circle must constantly prove loyalty or risk having it all stripped away. Those who fail this test become cautionary tales. The fate of Mikhail Khodorkovsky, imprisoned for years after challenging Putin's authority, stands as a grim reminder that the full force of the state can be wielded at will. The legal grounds may be questionable, but the outcome is never in doubt. Sanctions imposed by the United States and the European Union on Putin's associates reveal another layer of this hidden wealth. These measures target yachts docked in European marinas, bank accounts in Switzerland, and properties registered to shell companies in sunny coastal towns. Each frozen asset, each travel ban, hints at an attempt to squeeze the system and expose the shadow finances that sustain it. Yet proving the direct link between these billions and Putin remains elusive. His years with the Committee for State Security taught him how to bury secrets. Offshore firms leave few fingerprints, and trusted lieutenants rarely speak out. Even when evidence surfaces, denials are swift and forceful. Companies like Gunvor, for instance, dismiss claims of hidden ownership as conspiracy theories, despite repeated assertions from Western intelligence that Putin's wealth was stored there through intermediaries like Gennady Timchenko. Timchenko's stake, once nearly half of Gunvor, turned him into one of Russia's wealthiest men. But the narrative persists that he served as a trusted steward of funds too sensitive to appear in Putin's own name. The accusations stretch beyond Russia's borders, pulling in European investigators, American policymakers, and journalists who chase paper trails from Moscow to London to New York. Yet despite the leaks, witness testimonies, and confidential files, the complete map of Putin's riches remains a puzzle of gaps and speculation, held together by the consistent pattern that those closest to power are those who prosper, while dissenters find their fortunes vanish. The scale of this system becomes clear when examining how Russian energy resources fuel the arrangement. Oil and natural gas make up a massive share of Russia's export revenues. State-controlled companies like Gazprom and Rosneft hold commanding positions in global energy markets. These giants do not just power factories and heat homes. They generate billions of dollars that flow through pipelines of influence, ensuring the survival of a tightly managed network of loyalty and control. The energy trade offers ideal cover for concealed wealth. A company like Gunvor, once half-owned by Gennady Timchenko, was responsible for handling significant portions of Russia's state oil exports. The revenue generated was staggering, each shipment representing millions of dollars that could be moved, split, and redirected with relative ease. Insiders claim these flows did not just benefit shareholders on paper, but served as private accounts for Putin's hidden fortune. American officials maintain that such companies provided places for Putin to park his wealth discreetly. They speak of layers of ownership so dense that following the trail requires piercing through a maze of offshore jurisdictions and nominee directors. The official line from those accused, like Timchenko, is categorical denial. His legal team labels the allegations as fabricated propaganda, yet defectors repeat the same story. Major oil profits were used to enrich trusted lieutenants who, in turn, shielded wealth on behalf of the president. What makes these allegations so difficult to disprove or confirm outright is the level of discipline within Putin's circle. For decades, those with inside knowledge have stayed silent. Many who did speak out now live under threat. Some recount that Putin's control extends not just to tangible assets, but to every aspect of how money moves. If someone in the inner circle is asked about the real owner of an offshore firm or a bank stake, the answer is silence or coded language. Insiders use nicknames, code names, or simple gestures to avoid leaving a record that might later expose them. In meetings among close associates, references to Putin as the Tsar highlight the loyalty that holds this system together. Conversations caught on tape show men like Nikolai Shamalov reminding others of their place, that they are serfs to the Tsar, expected to deliver whatever is demanded. This feudal language mirrors the reality that the modern Russian state functions, for some, like a personal domain of the leader. To those who manage Putin's fortune, nothing is truly theirs. Every yacht, villa, or company share is simply a token held in trust. For Russia's oligarchs, the arrangement is brutally effective. They stay wealthy and influential as long as they do not stray from Putin's orbit. In return, they fund prestige projects like the World Cup, palaces on the coast, and luxury vessels that roam the seas under discreet flags of convenience. A $35 million yacht may be registered to an offshore entity, but insiders insist its true owner boards at his leisure, the running costs paid from state budgets or donations meant for public welfare. The intimidation that sustains this loyalty also shapes the wider economic landscape. The rise and fall of figures like Khodorkovsky remind everyone that there is no real separation between business and politics at the highest levels. The Kremlin's power over courts, law enforcement, and media makes it nearly impossible for rival centers of wealth or power to flourish independently. For foreign investors and governments, these realities complicate negotiations and sanctions alike. Western sanctions aim to freeze assets and disrupt flows of illicit money, but they rarely reach the hidden core protected by proxies, secrecy, and fear. Occasionally, glimpses of this hidden network surface in leaks or court battles abroad. Villas on the Spanish coast, bank accounts in Switzerland, real estate in London. Each piece adds to a larger picture of a leader whose personal fortune may rival that of entire oil-rich nations. Yet the full scale remains shadowed by deliberate obfuscation, non-disclosure, and the loyalty of those who benefit. In this environment, the measure of wealth is not simply what is owned on paper, but what can be commanded with a word. Insiders describe a system where Putin considers the Russian state's riches as his own to allocate. Oil pipelines, gas fields, shipping terminals, each is a lever that can be pulled to reward allies or punish rivals. For those entrusted to manage these assets, the privilege comes with immense risk. They handle billions, but do so knowing that their power exists only as long as they remain obedient to the unspoken rules. To outsiders, the idea that a single leader could hold sway over so much is staggering. But in Putin's Russia, the state and the person at its top merge into one. The modern Russian economy, with its pipelines, mining operations, and export terminals, operates under a logic where strategic resources double as instruments of loyalty. Oil, natural gas, timber, and minerals generate billions every year. Whoever controls the flow controls the spoils. And at the center sits a figure who learned early that power, secrecy, and fear are the foundation of control. In the international arena, this reality has far-reaching consequences. Russia's vast reserves make it an energy superpower, supplying Europe and parts of Asia with fuel that heats homes and powers industries. Whenever Western governments attempt to sanction Putin's circle, they face the difficult reality that cutting Russia off means disrupting global markets. This leverage has helped protect the inner circle's wealth for decades, shielding hidden fortunes behind contracts, trade deals, and diplomatic brinkmanship. The network's durability comes not only from loyalty and secrecy, but from adaptability. When European and American sanctions bite, assets move. Yachts are reflagged under different countries. Offshore accounts migrate to new jurisdictions. Shell companies dissolve and reappear under fresh names. Lawyers, accountants, and loyal aides ensure paper trails are as faint as possible. Occasionally, cracks appear. Whistleblowers leak documents, insiders defect, investigators seize bank records. But each revelation is just a fragment of a vast puzzle that quickly shifts shape. Those who have escaped this system share similar tales. They describe a culture where billion-dollar deals can be undone overnight, where lavish gifts, a palace, a yacht, a villa, are offered without question because resistance is too costly. Max Frieden's account, for example, explains how local monopolies granted by Putin when he was deputy mayor came with a hidden price tag, shares for the boss, and an understanding that profit depended on political favor. For many businessmen of that era, the choice was stark: cooperate or lose everything. Roman Abramovich's story reflects how oligarchs navigate these unspoken demands. Officially, his massive contributions funded hospitals and social programs. Yet leaked documents and testimonies claim millions instead built a private coastal fortress. Abramovich denies wrongdoing but does not directly contest the accounts of gifts like the $35 million yacht. It is widely understood among insiders that such donations were more tribute than charity, a signal that loyalty would be rewarded with protection and further opportunities. Others describe coded conversations and nicknames like Mikhail Ivanovich, used to refer to Putin in hidden recordings. These small linguistic shifts shielded sensitive details in case wiretaps were discovered. Financial flows passed through layers of offshore banks and front companies so complex that even seasoned investigators struggle to prove direct ownership. At the heart of each link stands trust, built over decades and cemented by the fear of what happens when that trust is broken. A single recording can expose hundreds of millions in hidden investments. A single defector can lift the curtain on a money trail leading from a Moscow office to a Swiss bank account. Yet the machinery built by Putin's circle does not rely on just one vault or one company. It is a web, spread across continents, held together by relationships forged in the smoky rooms of St. Petersburg and the back corridors of the Kremlin. This machine also protects itself by sending clear messages to the next generation of business elites. Wealth in Russia is conditional. The law is a tool that works one way for friends and another way for perceived enemies. This is why men like Khodorkovsky remain symbols of what happens when ambition or defiance crosses unwritten boundaries. Jailed for years on charges widely seen as politically motivated, he emerged as a warning that no contract or company charter can outweigh the will of the Kremlin. For the loyal few, however, rewards are immense. Childhood friends hold lucrative state contracts. Neighbors become billionaires overnight. A cellist who plays to packed concert halls quietly benefits from bank stakes that would make any financier envious. These individuals are not just wealthy. They are caretakers of the leader's hidden domain, each asset held in trust for the modern czar who, by some insider accounts, considers every convertible ruble inside Russia as part of his personal reserve. The picture that emerges is not simply one of staggering wealth, but of a system that has woven power, secrecy, and fear into the fabric of modern Russia. Vladimir Putin, shaped by the shadows of his early work in the Committee for State Security, built a state that functions like a fortress of loyalty. Those at the top know their positions, fortunes, and even freedom are tied to one man's favor. The palace on the Black Sea, the yachts cruising European harbors, the villas tucked away in Spain. Each example is more than just a rumor of extravagance. They are glimpses into how tribute flows in this hidden empire. Wealthy donors, some of Russia's most prominent billionaires, provide funds for national projects but find portions of those funds diverted into offshore firms, front companies, and discrete investments that benefit Putin directly, according to defectors and insiders. This loyalty for wealth system does not stop at property and luxury goods. Russia's vast natural gas fields, oil terminals, shipping routes, and massive state-owned energy giants all serve as the engine that keeps money moving. When Western governments impose sanctions to punish Russia for actions in Ukraine or Syria, they also tug at the threads that bind this hidden web. Frozen accounts, seized yachts, and banned visas send clear signals, but they rarely reach the deepest vaults where the true fortunes lie hidden under layers of trusted managers. In private, insiders admit that trying to assign a final number to Putin's wealth is futile. Some say he treats the entire Russian Federation as an asset he can command at will. The figure, $40 billion, $100 billion, becomes irrelevant when every contract, every major company, and every export deal can be tapped for funds if needed. This logic explains why direct proof is so elusive. A leader who sees all state wealth as a personal treasury leaves no obvious paper trail. Instead, the wealth is scattered across trusted proxies, business partners, loyal ministers, longtime friends, who understand that stepping out of line means losing everything. And this system is protected not just by fear, but by myths. To many Russians, Putin is a figure of stability, an action man whose approval ratings remain enviably high despite countless allegations. For some nationalists, he is the modern czar, a ruler who commands loyalty in exchange for strength and pride. This carefully managed image, projected through state media and propaganda, shields the truth from scrutiny at home, even as outsiders piece it together through leaks, witness statements, and forensic accounting. But the risks are growing. Investigators, journalists, and foreign governments have become more skilled at tracing hidden funds. Sanctions have evolved to target not just the leaders, but also the structures they rely on: shell companies, foreign banks, and secret investments. Yet despite mounting evidence and the occasional defector's revelations, the full story remains partly buried. A modern empire built on secrecy is not easily undone. For now, the conclusion is as stark as it is familiar. Vladimir Putin has been repeatedly accused of building a personal fortune on a scale rarely seen in history, secured through a network of loyal lieutenants, enforced by the state's power, and sustained by the wealth of a vast nation rich in oil, gas, and minerals. Whether any future investigator will ever fully untangle where the state ends and the personal treasure begins remains one of the defining questions of modern power politics.